G'day, I'm Greg and welcome to the shed. Tripping over a chair there. Today the job started off as replacing a thermostat in a 2002 AU Series 3 Falcon V8. For those of you who are not familiar, it's my work here. For those of you who are not familiar with the AU Falcon, Australian build, classified large car by Australian standards, probably mid-range by US standards, but yeah, it's a decent sized car. It's got the 5 litre Windsor in it, used the GT cylinder heads on it, roller cam, 175 kilowatts, not a bad motor, reasonably reliable, but this one's done 220,000 kilometres, and twice in the last couple of weeks it's spat all the coolant out, and but it's not using it. It just throws it out all of a sudden. One hit, it's all gone. Cool it down, put water back in it, no problem. So I've come across this before on a few vehicles, and I don't know if you can actually see in here, but you see the shiny spot just above my finger. That's where, and around here on the side you can see another one in here. What's happened is the thermostat is rubbing on the body. There you go, you can see that a little bit better. And what's happened is the thermostat's not on centre, and it's rubbing on the body, and it's sticking occasionally. So it happens when they get old. This is the original thermostat, so 2019 now, so August 2018 wasn't that long ago. So we can say that it's done 16 years. The reason I know it's original is because it's still got the Ford. It's got all the Ford gumph on it, and yeah, not too many people replace the replacement of the genuine thermostat. Incidentally, before I get too carried away with what we're going to talk about, how thermostat works, very, very basic. What it is in here is a pellet of wax, and here we've got a push rod. This side's on the hot side of the motor, this side's on the radiator. The hot water circulates past here, melts the wax expands, it pushes on the pin. We might cut it up later on and have a look. It pushes on the pin, pushes the wax pellet backwards, and what will happen is, against spring tension, it'll push it backwards against the spring tension, and it'll open it up and let the water flow through here. It'll actually open up a bit like a valve in a cylinder head. Sometimes you can push them by hand, but I'm not feeling overly tough at the moment. So I was just looking for a handy screwdriver. Might be able to get in here and give it a bit of a shove. If you do this incidentally, it's stuffed. Now you can see I've got the point of the, hopefully you can see, well, the point of the screwdriver through here now. There's light visible. Hopefully you can see it. You can just see a little bit of daylight through there. When I get the angle right, there you go. You can see a little bit of my ugly face in the background through the gap, but that's how they let the water come through. Yeah, very basic bit of science. Haven't changed much in the last 80, 90, 100 years. Now, the problem we have here is this thermostat housing. You can see through the back here. See my pinky, or the end of my pinky, there's a rust hole in it. Now, they want $247 retail for one of these. I'm a lot of things, and tight is one of them when it comes to spending money that I don't believe is worth it. You know, it's like we're talking $12 casting, maybe 15 bucks worth of machining, if that, because all this here is cast. The only thing they've actually, it's not even a machine face here, so it's just a rough cast face. sorry, this is just a rough cast face. This here is probably been machined, and I think the holes might have been machined, but so you've got 1, 2 holes and a pressing steel sleeve. So one machine setup, do all the machining in one setup, job's done. Press a sleeve in. Yeah, $247 is not what I call a justifiable charge for a thermostat housing made from cast aluminium with a pressed in steel sleeve. And the replacement one doesn't even have the pressed in steel sleeve, it comes with a cast aluminium sleeve, or cast aluminium spigot. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this steel sleeve out, and I'll have my $30 brass insert, which hopefully is going to fit, so we're going to have a go at putting that in. I'll show you how to get these out. This type of pressing steel sleeve is very common back when I was a young bloke. We used to put them in all sorts of stuff. This one's 3/4 inch. This is meant to be 3/4 inch. It's within, yeah, it's near enough. And especially today, it's pretty hard to get an actual accurate number, because today, where we stand at the moment, it's about 39 degrees centigrade. So if we're trying to work with a baseline of 20, we're not in the ballpark. But we can bear in mind that some people are on the other side of Australia here, just out of Sydney. Last night their overnight minimum was 35.6 degrees, which is in the mid-90s Fahrenheit. 36.8 is 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I think it's 36.8. So they're 35.6, so they were mid to upper 90s Fahrenheit last night. So yeah, it was lukewarm over there. It was pretty warm. So what we'll do is we'll stick this in a vise and we'll brutalise it a little bit, and I'll show you how I get them out. There's a couple of ways you can do it. There's a few different methods, and we'll talk about them while I'm doing it. So there's about 500 jobs going on the bench, as you can see. I've soaked this in the vise with the soft jaws, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by giving it a little bit of a cut. And I'm doing this with not with the tools that I have, but with the tools that is available in most workshops. And when I say most workshops, we're talking home workshops. We'll just make sure that's got a bit of tension on it. That blade's wobbling around a bit. There we go, that's a bit better. So I'm just going to take this off with a hacksaw. Now normally I'll do this a little bit different. But I just try and do this all in one setup, so we don't have to keep reshooting, shifting the camera and reshooting. So that's off now, and now you can see the big hole. That's my problem. So now we're committed to the repair. Now I've got a die grinder. Oops. I've got a little die grinder here. Air die grinder. So what we're going to do is I'm going to come down and I'm going to put a weak point in it. Now I don't want to go through it. now. Alright, we'll turn you off and I'll just set up. Okay, so we're back now, and I've tapped it a couple more times, and out comes our sleeve, all collapsed in on itself. Job's done. So now what we'll do is we'll get in here, and we'll give this a bit of a clean up, and then what we'll do is we'll check sizing, we'll press this in. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got the snap gauges that I got in the what's in your box, and .5 is what I have there, and .747 is what I have here. So we have 1.5 there. So yeah, I think we can live with that, considering we're going to aluminium. Okay, we'll turn off and we'll be back in a bit. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to Loctite this in. So what I'm doing here, this is just a bit of isopropyl alcohol. Get rid of the oil, handprints, general dirt, and we'll do the same on our fitting. So there we go. Now we have some, this is the 3 bond like a nut seal. Yeah, alright, it's not specified for doing cooling systems, but one reason that I'm using it is because this will fill gaps up to 0.3 millimeters, and when you're doing cooling system work, that's always a good thing. So there we go, that to there. And I've got it kicking around. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to go to the fixed jaw device, and there we go. You notice that I was tapping it around and then all of a sudden it found its own centre, and as soon as it found its own centre, it's in. Now if I kept hitting it in one spot, what would have happened is it would have forced it in at an angle, and that would have stretched the housing. If I put it in a press and I didn't have it dead square, straight, it would have gone in at an angle and stretched the housing, possibly split it. But by doing it the way I did it, and this is what I like about using hammers, a hammer, you can work your way around and it'll find its own centre, and then all of a sudden, in it goes. And with a hammer, you're not just applying force till you break it. You're not applying force till it yields. When you hit it, it'll move and rebound and move and rebound. And we've got some tiny little marks up here on the end, but they don't matter because nothing touches there. Right? Because what happens is the hose slides over here and clamps onto here. Job's done. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll give this a wipe, bit of a clean up. Here's a bit of rag, that'll do. We'll give this a wipe and a clean up, and I'll go and put it on, and I'll go and do some driving. When it's running, I'll come back and give you a shot. Now, while I'm talking to you, throwing that out on the ground, this is the thermostat, the new thermostat that's going in. It's not a genuine Ford one, but what do I do with these normally come with a little jiggler that's meant to let the air out, and then when you get a bit of water flow, it shuts them off and it gives you total control. I always personally cut the jiggler off and throw it away. The reason is that now it will always let any steam pockets out, any little air pockets, any of those little nuisance things. The thing that you do get though is they are slightly slower to warm up, and sometimes the motors will run a fraction cooler. Now with the fuel injected motors, that can be an issue. So I may be paying a price with fuel economy. Normally, if I was doing this in a normal thermostat that didn't have the jiggler in it, I'd put a 3 to 4 mil hole in there, 1/8, 532, something like that. I probably want to get to 3/16, which is 5 mil in rough numbers. But the other thing too is always make sure that hole goes to the uppermost point. In this case, the thermostat housing, the hose goes straight up. So what I'll do is I'll put this in so it's straight up. And if you don't want to wrestle with it, get a bit of super glue, put some super glue in there and glue it in. And that'll stop it moving while you're trying to assemble everything. It's a much easier way of doing it, eh? Alright, it's pretty damn hot out here at the moment, so excuse me for putting my glasses on. The venerable Ford 5 litre Windsor V8, or 302, used to be known as 4.9 years ago. Then they went metric. Pretty faithful, reliable old girl. But instead of having a distributor now, or now, we're talking 2002, distributor got thrown away and they went to direct fire ignition with coil packs. Under here there's a, well, I think they call it a synchronizer, but it's a camshaft position sensor, so it knows whether it's on top dead center number 1 or where it is in the rotation. Make sure it's on compression number 1, top dead center compression number 1, or wherever the reference point is. Throttle position sensor, air mass sensor. Over the back here there's an inlet air temperature sensor. We've got the injectors. We're not going to get in here in too much detail. These are fuel pipes, fuel rail. This one here is a vapour line. It's just preventing the fuel tank. One of these will be pressure, one of these will be return. Regulators up the back there, so this one here, this back one here looks like it's the return. Alternator sitting up the top. Power steering, typical on these, it's probably the same all over the world. This one here's got a little leak. They've got an O-ring on them, the O-ring shits itself, it leaks. Yeah, shocking piece of design. Reliably unreliable. So, ABS module sitting here. Plastic header tank, which definitely a limited life expectancy item. This particular one here is aftermarket, I just bought. The one I took off has got a broken nipple and a broken fitting, and it's just fatigued from the heat. It's a genuine item, so it's probably the original one on the car. The float level sensors made by VDO, that hooked itself too. Always shows low coolant level. It's great to have these features on vehicles, but one thing I don't like about these vehicles, and I'm talking in general, I'm not picking on the Ford here, I'm picking on everything that's currently out in the marketplace that I get to see, they're not durable. Yes, the engines last longer, but the rest of the vehicle doesn't last as long as what they used to do. You know, it's like I've got a 1983 Ford Bronco, the steering wheel's in better condition than what it is on this. And on my station wagon and on my other ute, which is a later model ute, or on my 2 other later model utes. What I do like on these though is the wheel bearings, put them on, run them till they drop, throw them in the bin. And at the cost of them, it makes good economic sense. So from that point of view, that's good, but there's just so much ancillary stuff on these which you just, if I'm being kind to it, I'd rate it as rubbish. I don't like it at all. I'm very, very disappointed with it. But yeah, look, anyway, back to where we were. 175 kilowatts. Not particularly special on fuel, especially with what this is doing. It's carrying a fair bit of weight around in it. This vehicle's got a very heavy spring pack in it. Rear spring pack. It's an aftermarket one. It's got an extra leaf in it, and then the parabolic helper leaf, instead of being flat to start with, what it's got in it, it's actually got quite an arch. I don't even know if you can see me here. What it's got is it's got arch. It's in contact with the rear springs before you even put the body on. It's already holding weight, and then you put the body on, and then you start putting weight on it, and it gets heavy. What do I think of the Ute? It's not a bad drive, actually. I quite like it. I can hop in it and do 600 or 700 or 800 k's in a day and think nothing of it. I get out and I'm not stiff, I'm not sore, I'm not achy. The next model, the two models that came after this, the BA and the BF, yeah, they're a better drive again, but Ford Australia no longer build them. And quite frankly, being honest, both of mine are 6 cylinders. Excuse me. That 4 litre 6 cylinder is one of the best straight 6 motors you'll ever see anywhere in the world. It is a fantastic motor in my opinion. Let down by a few things, as is typical of most things around the world nowadays. I don't like the single sheet steel shim head gasket. Actually, I don't like steel shim head gaskets. Not when you've got an alloy head against a cast iron block. I understand the science behind it, but because of whatever coating they put on them, it ages, it goes brittle, it flakes, you get water between the cylinder head and the block, or the cylinder head and the gasket, and the block and the gasket, and it eats the blocks out and ruins the top of the block. And again, this isn't a problem that's isolated to Ford Motor Company, it's just the way things are done nowadays. And I think that in some ways, a lot of stuff goes backwards. The metallurgy of the cylinder blocks on today's vehicles, cylinder blocks, the pistons, the rings, the bearings, the lubricants, our corrosion inhibitors, they've all come such a long way. These motors are let down by ancillary failures. You get head bolts fail. I see head bolts break, and I've pulled heads off because the gasket hasn't blown. Well, we've got an oil leak out the side of the head, and we pull the head off because the head bolt, you go and lift it out, and there's a broken head bolt. It's one head bolt short, and it still hasn't blown the gasket out. It still hasn't got a compression loss. The head gaskets, you get water between the blocks and the head. It fails. Oil pressure sender units on these, reliably unreliable. It's like, oh, I've got an oil leak. Yeah, all right, let's put a oil pressure sender unit on it. And I'm talking about the switch, the little diaphragms in them fail one after another. And that's on the 6 and the V8. But Ford Australia don't build vehicles anymore. Quite frankly, I'm a long-time Ford fan. I wouldn't buy one new. Why? Because they're not durable. Not like they used to be, comparatively. Before, the first thing that failed on the vehicle was the motor. You wore a motor out, or a gearbox out, or both out about the same time, and then you put another motor and a gearbox in, and the car did another life cycle. Nowadays what happens is the rest of the car falls apart and the motor's still going, generally. But you're always spending money on them. But that said too, let's be honest, spark plugs, 160,000 Ks, we used to pull them out every 10,000 when I was an apprentice, replace them every 20. Front wheel bearings, a couple of 100,000 Ks, 180,000 Ks out of a set of front wheel bearings. We used to have to repack them every 40,000 kilometres. And so nowadays, particularly with the cost of labour, it's cheaper just to put a hub on with bearings in it than it is to repack a set of bearings. So that said, I think that's a good thing. I think it's a very good thing. But every single hub I pull down cause a failure. Not enough grease. But You know, personally, if I was doing it from scratch, I'd put double or triple the amount of grease in. And the next set of hubs that I buy, I'm going to see if I can get them apart and put double or triple the amount of grease in them. That is, get them apart without stuffing them. Because there's a trick to that, because if you get them wrong, what happens is you bruise the races and you can't, and then they're stuffed anyway. So yeah, look, we might just do a quick tour around this and I'll give you a bit of an idea of, no, we won't. I was going to say we'll do a bit of a quick tour around it, but there's a fair bit of stuff in here and you really don't need to see it all. It's just not that interesting. We'll save it for another video for those that are interested. But that thermostat housing, aftermarket, $147. I don't even, not 147, $247 list for an aftermarket housing. You can buy billet ones, you can buy them on eBay, but you know, they're still all over a couple of $100 list. And for $30 you can buy one of those brass fittings and put that in. So it's yeah, a little bit of time, but it'll do the job. And you know, I only plan on keeping this for another couple of years, and then it'll be time to get rid of it anyway. But in a couple of years' time, we'll have 300,000 Ks on it, and at 300,000, it'll be well and truly time to flick it. I'll have to, because by then, the other thing too is that this is pretty full. There's not much space in the back of it. So about that point in time, we'll have to throw a, we'll probably have to go to a van or a small truck. So we'll have to make a few dollars and buy a small truck. But thanks for watching, thanks for listening to my rambling. Please subscribe, and thank you for your time.